Slides are visible?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. So let's start this. So I have introduced like kernel methods yesterday. So I will take over all this again. So there, as I said, that there are two possible approaches for learning. One is that you learn, you have a data, then you assume some model to fit that data. For an example, you want to fit a line. So then the only thing that left is once you assume that you want to fit a line, is to find out the parameters of that model. Means intercept and slope. So the moment you know that the parameters of the model, then you can leave the data aside, and every time you want to predict, you can use that same line, right? You can use that same line for a unknown x. You just find it out using that line. What is the your prediction y, right? This is what you do. In approach 2, what you do, you just convert your parametric model into a dual representation. We will see like what is dual representation. And then there in that dual representation, we see that the prediction can be done using a linear combination of a kernel function. So we will see all this thing. What is kernel function? What are the linear combination of kernel function? And the prediction will be done using this thing, right? So here in the dual representation, we just have a kernel function. We take a linear combination of a kernel function for our prediction. So the one form of a kernel function is this linear kernel function, x transpose x, right? So if it is like we are using some feature map or basis functions, phi. So it is like it is nothing but a dot product. And mostly those parameterized models, right? These parametric models, when they are represented in dual representation, the kernel function can be represented by a scalar product or a dot product, right? This phi transpose phi. We will see it in how we can do that. Kernel methods are symmetric. It means whether you do x transpose y or y transpose x, the result will be same. So let's see like what is dual representation. So this is a error function for linear regression. It is a regularized error function. We have discussed in details in our previous classes, so I don't need to go into this. Then what we do, just we take the gradient of this error function and put it equals to 0. So when I put it equals to 0, this is what we get, right? So on one side we take a w, and the other side we take the lambda, right? Now you put this w, right? So let's first just first simplify the representation. So what here in this representation, the author has replaced this thing with some a, right? Right. So this is nothing but it is just replaced a, right? This lambda is constant, so you are bringing this constant inside the summation. So that's why it is going 1 upon lambda here. So it will not affect anything. Then just we yesterday I have discussed, you can write it in this form where this is your design matrix and each column is your sample, right? Each column is your sample because it's a design matrix transpose. And you have one vector A, which is A1, A2, AN, right? So you are just doing what? You are taking a linear combination of your samples, which are weighted by A1, A2, AN, right? This is how you are taking, and you are summing them up. Yesterday we have discussed all these things. And this is nothing but you can find it out W by doing this, right? So if you multiply phi transpose A, right? So then you will get a vector. That vector is nothing but it's W. What you do, you put that W again back into this error function. But here now W you have represented how? You have represented as phi transpose A, right? Phi transpose A. So wherever you have W, you just replace it by phi transpose A. Phi transpose A whole transpose right? O transpose and then phi transpose A. So if you just now you see and simplify it, you will get this, right? This expression. So just to make you understand, I'll try to write it for you guys. For an example, this is what I can write this expression here as phi matrix, design matrix into W minus my T vector column for whole my data set transpose phi W minus T, right? This is we have done in linear regression also. So this is how we can write it. This summation will go away because we have just.
Sir, wouldn't it be W transpose?
Sorry?
It will be phi W transpose minus T whole transpose, right?
What are you saying?
In the new expression that you've written here, shouldn't it be
Hmm.
phi into W transpose? Because we have W transpose over here, right?
Where we have W transpose? Here?
In the cost function, here is W transpose. So,
No, no, no.
or is it just for multiplication?
It is just a scalar product, right? So W transpose is like this, X is like this. But when you do phi, phi means that each row is a sample and W is like this. So you multiply this first sample with W, then second sample with W, then third sample with W. You will get all your predictions. Prediction 1, prediction 2. I think this is very nominal now. We have done it so many times.
Okay, sir, got it.
And then you're subtracting it from T. So T is your target variables. What is first one, second one, and then you're subtracting it, right? And then taking a transpose. So this is what we go do. Now you just, this is your expression. You simplify it. When you simplify it, so just to, it's a bit messy, so I will clear something. So this is your expression, right? So now if you have this expression, what you do, you take this W transpose, you open this transpose, W transpose phi minus T transpose, right? And this is W phi W minus T. And what you will get? It is nothing but W transpose, oops, it is phi transpose, right? Transpose phi W. It is my first term, right? So if I put phi transpose A in respect with W, right? So there are two W's here. So what I will get, it will get A transpose phi, right? Then these two phi will come. This is phi transpose phi. And this W again. So W is phi transpose A. Phi transpose A. So this is what we get. This is the first expression here, right? Same thing, right? Now you just do it on your own. I think that this then you multiply this phi transpose W with this second term. It is phi W transpose phi transpose T. So it is W transpose phi transpose T, right? Similarly, from this term phi T transpose phi W, you will get the same term, because, and you take a reciprocal of it, it will same, so it will come -2. You have done it. Then you just replace with W phi transpose A. So it is A transpose phi transpose T, right? So this is this, right? So 2 will cancel by this 2. Here this 2 will get cancelled by this 2. So you just do it and you will find it out that you are getting the same expression. And here this W transpose W, you just replace that phi transpose A, you will get the same expression here. So everything is same, and you're just replacing W with the phi transpose A. What you will get by doing it? So first your cost parameter, first your error function was in terms of W, but here now it is in terms of A, where A is, you have written like this, right? In terms of lambda. So it is a dual representation. Dual representation because it's a Lagrangian multiplier and you have just brought it here. So this is like how you have just changed your error function representation where the variable was W. Now the variable is A, right? And A is written in terms of your Lagrangian. Oh, sorry, I should not use this Lagrangian because I have not introduced. Because you have used this, you have used your error function. You have represented your error function in terms of A, where A is a function of this lambda, right? So this is now a dual representation. Now you minimize your cost function with respect to A, right? Because A is your new variable here. It is known as dual representation. When you minimize it and put it equals to 0, right? Okay, before then that. So what you do, can anybody tell me what you will get with by phi transpose? If you do phi transpose, what you will get? So let's see what is phi. Phi is nothing but all my data in a row, right? So phi transpose is transpose if it means all my data in column, right? Samples are put in column wise. Now you multiply this. So what you're doing, you're multiplying with first by first column, first row, first column. So it is a dot product between X itself, right? Then you take a dot, this row with this column. It is a dot product between second sample and first sample. Dot product between third sample and first sample. Dot product between fourth sample and first sample. So when the product matrix will come, dot product with itself, dot product with second sample, third sample, and fourth sample. Likewise, you will get entries here. And each entry is nothing but it's a dot product with somebody. So if the entry I am writing it as NM, right? So my NM is nothing but it's a dot product of my sample N with mth sample, right? And I say that because it's a dot scalar product, I say it is a linear kernel function here, right? So I'm representing this dot product as a kernel function. So each entry of this K matrix, which I'm saying it's a gram matrix, is nothing but it is showing the dot product between every possible combination in the data set, right? So now this is phi transpose. This is my first K matrix. So I write it here. Then second phi transpose. This is my second K matrix. I write it here. Phi transpose again. It's a Gram-Schmidt matrix replaced here. And similarly phi transpose. This Gram-Schmidt matrix here, right? So now you have just rewrite your cost function in terms of A, and where you found out that in this A representation or dual representation, you can insert gram matrix, where gram matrix is nothing but it's a dot product between every possible sample, right? So now the dimension of gram matrix, if I have n samples in my data set, so the dimension of gram matrix will be n by n, right? Can anybody tell me what I should do now with this cost function JA?
Minimize it.
Yes, very nice. I need to minimize it. I have not done anything special or new. It is just a dual representation. I am juggling with the mathematics and representations. Everything is same. The new notation that I've introduced here is gram matrix, right? And the good part of gram matrix is that I can write my samples in terms of a dot product, right? So I have written my given data set X into terms of a dot product. So here you see, if you see this JA, every time my sample exists, it never exists. Are you agree with me? So every time my data sample comes, it always take a dot product with the other sample. Yes or no? Do you agree with this? So here in dual representation, you will never see like this is this X is coming alone, right? So later we'll find it out. We will try to leverage this representation very cleverly. But here you need to emphasize and see that every time your sample comes, it comes in terms of a scalar product. A scalar product with in the data set, right? With every other sample. Any questions so far? Yes or no? Right. Okay. Fine. So now this I will take that gradient it equals to 0, right? And when I solve for A, this is what I get, right? This is what I get, right? So you remember that W is nothing but phi transpose A. So at the time of a prediction, so if W was my line, right? So it was intercept and slope. So W transpose A is nothing but a line. But here W I have written in terms of A. So W is nothing but A transpose phi. W transpose is nothing but A transpose phi. Right? Now what is this? When you see this is my phi and this is my point where I'm predicting. So see here, this is my phi, which is the points data sets, samples in my data set, and I'm multiplying it with X, right? It's multiplying with X where I want to predict it. What this will give me? What this will give me? This product? Can anybody tell me what this product will give me? This is a phi matrix. It's a matrix, right? It's a matrix. And it is just a basis function of that text where I want to predict my new value. So what this product will give me? Anybody? Come on, quick. So how I see phi? Phi is nothing but it's my samples are in row, right? Sample 1, sample 2, and its sample. So each sample I have projected in m dimensions. So my matrix will be n by m, right? N samples are there and each sample is projected in m dimension using basis function. Now I want to predict for some x, new x. So definitely before prediction, I want to project it into m dimension. So the basis function, the feature vector will be m into 1 for prediction, right? What is, now can anybody tell me what I will get by multiplying phi this what this matrix product will give me, matrix with the vector? That is fine. N into 1 matrix is, n into 1 vector is fine, but can anybody interpret that vector? What is that vector actually? What each entry is telling that in that vector? So there is a vector. Each entry is having some meaning here. What is that meaning? This vector which I got n into 1, here each component is having some meaning, right? What is that? What I'm doing? So it is nothing but a dot product of every sample with this prediction one, right? So this is first entry in the output. Then you take the second sample, take a dot product with the prediction one, and it is a second entry. Then you take the third sample in your data set, take a dot product where you want to predict, it's the third entry, right? So here every entry is nothing, but it is a dot product, right? It is a dot product. You agree with me? Can you see this now? Here n into 1 vector is nothing, but it's a dot product of a data set with a predicted, where I want to predict it, right? So let's talk about dot product first. What is dot product? Can anybody tell me, because you have done linear algebra and you have been reading so many lectures, statistical computers, and you have done so many courses. What intuitively you can see, or even I have taken some lectures, what the dot product will signifies to you? What is the intuition of dot product for you guys? If I have some x and y vector, I'm taking a dot product between them. What do you think? What it will give me? Fine, projection onto one vector. That's one thing to see. It is nothing but it's a kind of a similarity matrix. If they are in the same direction, I will get a bigger number. It means the vectors are very similar, and if they are orthogonal, I will get 0, right? So it is kind of a similarity metric. If you see cosine similarity, you will find they are used there, right? So this dot product, you can somehow see it as a similarity. Fine. So it means if you are taking this matrix phi into this for design matrix into this basis x where you want to predict, it will give you a vector where each component will tell you how your sample where you want to predict is similar to each of the point in your data set, right? So this output vector n into 1 vector, here each entry will tell you how similar your predicted x is to that sample x in data set, right? So if you have n samples in your data set, so you are taking similarity one by one where you want to predict it. So just see it here intuitively. For an example, you want to predict here. This is your x where you want to predict, and this is your data set x1. There are two samples in your data set. Let's say x1, x2. So if I take a dot product of my x with x1, and then I take a dot product with x to x2, intuitively, this is more similar, right? This is more similar. It will give me higher number, and it says that the similarity is high. When you take a dot product with x to x1, then I will get relatively less similarity. So it means if I have two values, the dot product of predicted x with x1 and the dot product of x with x2, then the second entry relatively is high, which says that x2 is more nearer to x, right? And this first entry, it is a dot product between x1 to x. It says that the similarity between x1 and x, which is less than the similarity between x2 and x, right? So this is how you can see this. So now let's come to this expression. So this phi transpose phi is nothing but it's a vector, and this vector is giving me the the scalar product of a sample in my data set with the predicted one, right? With the predicted one. So here n is like sample 1, sample 2, sample 3, and x is where I want to predict. K is nothing but it's a dot product, right? I said you that my kernel function is here is linear, so it is nothing but phi transpose phi, phi transpose x into phi, right? So this is nothing but it's a vector, output vector, and the value of a was something like this. You remember what is a here? This is a. This is a. You just directly place this a some here, right? Oops, sorry. You have just found out the value of a, right? This is a. Sorry. By minimizing a function, and you just keep it. So you just bring this. You just plug this here, right? So just to make it is a bit messy, so I just try to rewrite it. So it is this one, right? So this is nothing but it's a k vector. So I write it as A transpose k x, right? Kx. So it's a dot product. What is the output? It will be a scalar. So if you can rewrite it this way. So it is k x transpose into a, right? And now you plug this a here. You plug this a here, which is nothing but this one, right? So this is your prediction. The only thing that I want to show here is that the moment you are trying to find out the value k, the good value of a, it is in a dot product form. And the moment you want to predict, it is also in a dot product form. Everywhere you want to take a dot products, right? Is this clear to you guys? The intuition, the why I have come to the dual representation. The thing I want to convey here is whether you are predicting or finding out a right value for right value to optimize. Everywhere you are putting the things in terms of a sample, where samples are taken in terms of a dot product. Yes or no? Can you write quickly yes or no for this? Or if you have any question, please let me know. Right. So this is like the main intuition for this here is that you can, in dual representation, you are writing everything in terms of your samples in the data set, where samples are present in form of a dot product, where dot product you are saying that it's a linear form of a kernel function, right? So you say that dot product is nothing but it's a kernel function k, right? I just showed you here somewhere. So it is a dot product is, you are saying that it's a kernel function, linear kernel function, right? So it means you are using linear kernel function in dual representation, because everywhere my samples are present in dot product, and dot product you are saying that it is a linear kernel function, right? Okay, so that's fine. Now let's try to find it out what are the use of this kernel function. So we have taken a dual representation. We found out that this is very the things that we are getting is in terms of every time in a kernel function form, right? Okay. So if I just want to go deep into this, so those who can understand it, so this is a matrix which give me n by 1 vector. So it is 1 by n because I take a transpose. it is 1 by n. So this is nothing but a Gram-Smith matrix with some regularizer. So it is n by n matrix, right? It is n by n matrix. So the result will be 1 by n. 1 by n, right? So it's a vector of 1 by n. This t is nothing but it's a target values, right? Target value of first sample, target value of second sample. So it is also a vector. You are taking a dot product. It means you are taking a linear combination of this with this target value, of this with this target value, the linear combination of third target value with this value, and you're summing them. It means you're weighting with terms of your target values, right? Weighting what? Weighting this distance or similarity of your uh, of your predicted, where you want to predict how much it is similar to your sample in the data set, right? So intuitively, this is how you see it. For an example, you want to predict for this x. There is a data set with two samples, x1, right, and x2. So now for x1 the value is this. This is t1. For x2 the value is this, t2, right? Let's say this is my x2. I just made it a bit far. So this is my x2. I want to predict for this x. What do you think my x, oops, x1, x2, I want to predict at x, right? I want to predict at x. For x1 this is the value t1. For x2 this is the value t2. What do you think the value for this new x is more near to t1 or more near to t2? What do you think? Intuitively, if I ask you without applying any algorithm, if you want to guess whether it is near to t1, the target value for this new x, whether it is near to t1 or it is near to t2, whether it comes in this range or it will come in this range. Tell me, what do you think? So because if you apply your general sense of intuition, you say that because it is more near, because my unseen is more near to x2, so that's why the target value also we should match more relatively to the t2, right? So then the contribution for this target variable should be weighted more in term when you are want to weight t2 in respect to t1, right? So the average you will take will be like this. You take 0.1 weight for T1 and 0.9 weight for T2, right? So 0.1 is because it is far and 0.9 is because it is more near. So T2 is having a bigger role in deciding what is the target value for X, because my X is near to X2. So this 0.9 is nothing but it is similarity of my unseen X with a sample in a data set x2, and this 0.1 is nothing, it's a similarity of my x1 with the unseen x, and I'm weighting my target value with this similarity, right? This is how you can see it intuitively, right? Okay, so this is all like about this. We will reintroduce this concept in terms of Gaussian process. So let's go quickly on this. So this is my kernel function, linear kernel function. I can write it this way. It is nothing but I have to multiply every corresponding component and then sum them up, right? So this is a very traditional way, and if I do it by this way, I don't have much advantage, right? If now try to understand a very critical point here. If somehow I will get the result, almost the same result like this, but without going into a high dimension space. So this is my original space X. I am projecting into some other dimension, high dimensional space. So this is my X small dimension vectors, X and Y. I project them in high dimension. This is X dash or Y dash, let's say. Then I take a dot product here, right? When I take a dot product here, I will get some value, right? So there, how much work I have to done? I need to first project it here. Then if it is 100 dimensional space, then I will to do then I to do 100 multiplication and 99 summation, right? So almost then I will get this V. You got this point? So if I project in high dimensional space, taking a dot product there will need a computational effort, and it depends upon what is the dimension of that space. If it is 100 dimension, then I need to take 100 multiplication there because there are 100 components in high dimensional space. I need to multiply these corresponding components in both vectors, and then I need to sum them up. So approximately I need 100 summation and 100 multiplication, right? Yes or no? You understand this point? Quickly, please be active. Right. So if it is the case, if somebody give me a kernel trick, so I'm using this word a trick, I don't go into this space, but I can calculate this V value without projecting it effectively, right? But somehow I calculate this V value without actually projecting it. So here I'm doing how many computation, it is like 2m. So if it is a m dimensional space, so this is a computation. But using kernel trick, I will calculate the same V value in constant time, right? I will take only a constant time. Then if this is a kernel trick I can use, then it is very easy for me. Now there is no computational limitations. If you ask me 1000, you project into 1000 dimension, I will do it. If you ask me, no, 1000 dimensions, you project into 1 million dimension, I will do it, because the only thing to compute is only constant time. Effectively, if I want to actually do it, then projecting into 1 million space needs a lot of significant effort. In fact, you can project into infinite dimensions and then there take a dot product, and whatever the things you get there in the infinite dimension, you will get into a constant time, right? So this is an idea of a kernel trick here. So let's take one example of it, right? For an example, I have this vector x and vector z. So this is two-dimensional vector x1, x2, right? And there is another dimension vector z1 and z2, right? z1 and z2. If somebody says that project them into a three-dimensional space, right? So I can project them here in three-dimensional space. 1, 2, 3. I then project here this also in three-dimensional space. 1, 2, 3. And then take a dot product here, right? Then take a dot product and I will get a value V here. So kernel trick says that you actually don't project them and take a dot product here itself in the original dimension. So you take dot product in original dimension itself here, right? Then whatever you will get, first tell me if you take a dot product in original dimension, what is the dimension of the what is the dimension of that output? What is the dimension of the output? If you take a dot product in this original space, what is the dimension of the output? Come on, fast. Am I connected? Right. So the dimension in input, if I take a dot product in original space, my original space is 2 dimension. So x is a vector which is 2 by 1, z is a vector which is 2 by 1. I take a dot product here. What is the output value? What is the output I will get after taking a dot product? Come on, this is very trivial. No need of doing machine learning here. Scalar, it is a scalar. It's just a number, right? 1 into 1. Then you take a square of it. You will get again a scalar value, right? Now let's try to analyze this. Rather than just doing a dot product here, you just write this dot product in this form, which is nothing x1, z1, x2, z2, and then take a square. You expand this square, then you find it, these are the components. And when you see these components, these are nothing but a dot product between two vectors. The first vector is this, where the first component is x1, the first square, then second is x1, x2, and the third one is x2 square. Similarly, this is the second vector z1 square, z1, z2, and z2 square, right? And then you take a dot product. So this is nothing but it is, you take this vector, it is a transpose, and this one. So actually what this slide is saying, whether you project them into this dimension, so this is your original space, x1, x2, right? Either you project them here in 3-dimensional space and then take a dot product, or what you do, you just take a dot product in original space and take a square. It will give you the same result, right? If that is the case, if this is the case, then which way you will prefer? So this way here, it is taking a square of the dot product in original space, which will give you the same effect as you have projected into a higher dimensional space, and then take a dot product, right? What if somebody says you that you project it into a m-dimensional space, right? So then what you do? You just take this power and replace it with m. Then you will have m plus 1 dimensions, right? And each term in this vector will be, each monomial term will be of order m, right? Like here, the each term will be order of 2, right? It is x1, x2 quadratic. It is also quadratic because you have used 2 here, right? So if you use power m, then each term will have m order. The term will be of m or order of m, right? Like xm, right? x1m, or it is x1 into x2 m minus 1, right? The third one of the term can be x1 m by 2 and x2 m by 2. Like this way you will get these terms. And what will the effect? You can see this as like you're projecting your vector x into m-dimensional space and then taking a dot product there. But you are doing it with a trick. You actually are not doing it, but the effect will be the same. So I hope this is making sense to you guys. Can you just let me know before ending the lecture? Only one student? Okay. Can you respond it to all of you who understood this thing? Okay. Very nice. Very nice. Be response. Yeah. Very good. Okay. Fine. So, okay, then let's finish the class today here, and I will continue from here onwards tomorrow. Thank you.